G once again with yet another edition of DJ the DJ. And as always, we got another amazing talent. We're going to Chicago, baby, because today we are talking to the one and only Alex Peace. What up, brother? How are you, man?
I'm blessed, brother. How are you, my man?
I'm doing good, bro. I'm doing good, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me and tell us a little bit about you and your story and how you got started and how you got to where you are today, man.
Oh man, well, so let's see. I was going to nightclubs when I was like 15, 16 years old.
Wow.
They were more or less house parties before they were clubs. They were like parties at like hotel ballrooms.
Right, right.
Back in the day in Chicago, that was the thing. Promoters would throw parties at VFW halls or banquet halls, and then they started throwing parties at hotel ballrooms.
Wow.
That's when it started for me. Then I went to my first nightclub. It was called McGreevy's. I was 16 years old when I first. It was a teen club.
That's cool.
It had two rooms. There was a house room that had an amazing female DJ, and then there was a back room, an alternative room. And that was my first introduction to like Front 242, Depeche Mode, New
Oh, yeah.
Order. So it was dope to have those two vibes, and then tragedy struck. My
Uh-oh.
mom passed away suddenly in a car accident when I
Mm,
was 18 years old.
wow.
My friends and the nightclubs was kind of my escape,
Hmm.
um, and so I would go do that all the time. And then before you know it, I got my first opportunity to DJ in a nightclub. Um, Actually, before that, I was doing voiceover, like rapping over mixtapes.
Oh,
I don't know if
cool.
you heard of Bobby D. He's a Chicago icon. His Edit Crazy mixtapes are, some of the best mixtapes out there. And I started doing stuff on his mixtapes, doing intros and doing like just funny, like quirky raps. And then our relationship grew where he called me one day. It was actually on my 18th birthday, and he said, "Hey, man, the guy from the radio station isn't going to be here tonight. Do you want to come MC some contests?" And I was
Sweet.
like, "Yeah, let's do it." And the after the night was over, the owner comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, man, I really like what you did. I want to give you a job if you want to MC here." And I was like, I was 18 years old. I didn't know anything. I was like, "Yeah,
You're like, hell
my
yeah.
friends can get it for free. I don't care." Um, and then I started actually rapping commercials for the nightclub.
Oh, wow. That's
So the
cool.
commercials for the nightclub were me rapping about who the guest was going to be, who the artist was going to be. Um, we would record in like this dope. The owner was part of like a rock community, like because the venue always booked bands,
Hmm.
so he had access to studios. So we would go to the studio, and it was my first time in this, studio with this giant mix console and a sound engineer, and
That's
Bobby
cool.
D would already have the commercial cut in terms of what I was rapping over. So I
Right.
would just go into the studio and record my vocals, and then Bobby D would take it to his house and he'd cut the commercial. Bobby D actually ended up winning some awards from radio because of the commercials.
Really?
Um, then after about a year or so, it kind of is like natural evolution took over. So I started DJing like the first half hour. Then
That's
it
cool.
turned into the
How,
first
how,
hour.
when was the first time that you actually discovered turntables and DJing? Was it at one of these events or?
No, so going back to my teen years when I was 15, 16, I was part of a dance crew. And two of the DJs, they were the DJs. They were the ones that had the equipment. That was my first introduction to turntables, where they would just like we would just be practicing in the basement, dance
Cool.
moves and making up routines while the DJs would be playing. And then slowly but surely, "Hey, let me try it. Show me how does this work?" And they'd show me the pitch control, they show me the fader. Here's your cue. Here's how and I mean, I could tell you the first 2, 3 years or 2 years of me learning. I mean, it was just, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there.
Right,
And
right.
it wasn't until I got my first set of turntables and mixer that I really started to learn, how to DJ. Before it was just imagine somebody just saying, play this record into that record.
Right.
You're not really quite sure how the pitch works.
Exactly.
You're not sure what to listen for. It took me a while to understand the breaks of music
Do you
where
remember the first time that you actually figured out the concept of beat matching? Like
you know what?
everybody that I've interviewed, they always have like this go to. Like some people like Tony B, he had a drumming background and stuff like that. Other people, they just kind of through practicing myself, I ended up figuring it out because I got two songs. I remember Sunbelt Spin It. So I
Uh,
got two of those records and I just matched them up and then I kind of figured it out. What was your go to when you first figured out how to beat match?
so I can tell you the first time I actually beat matched a record. It was in the basement of my friend Chris's house, and he had the old Sony turntables with the pitch on the side. And if I remember correctly, what was the song Forever? It was a freestyle blend. I was blending freestyle. I think it was Lisette Melendez,
Okay.
Forever Yours.
Forever
I
yours,
think
yeah.
it was out of it. I mean, I was basically practicing the same blend. I was out of a cutting records vinyl into Lisette Melendez, and I remember beat matching it. And I remember looking up like, holy shit, is this right? And my friend looking at me like, dude, you're doing it. And that was the first time I ever beat matched a record. And then everything from then on until when I first started DJing in clubs, like getting that confidence to play in clubs, it was a blur. Like I don't remember really how it came about. Like that was I was what 16 when I first did my actual blend, I think, and
Wow.
then I didn't start DJing until halfway through 18, like so right before I was 19. So that's a good, let's say 2.5, 3 years of
Right.
just dabbling. When I was 18 is when I first started buying my own records. Still was just practicing in the basement, and then slowly got enough confidence to say, hey, can I play? Watching these guys DJ, Bobby D, Mix and Mark now goes by Mark Stout. Like these guys were there, and I'm just watching them, and I'm like, man, I want to do that. So slowly I started buying my own records. I actually started DJing as a hip hop DJ. That was what I would
Interesting.
play once I started getting to know what I was doing. It developed into, you know what, Alex is going to play the hip hop set of the night. Like, so 15, 20, 30 minutes, of hip hop, like commercial, whatever was big on the radio.
Right.
Uh, and then slowly, I phased out of that into, man, I really like more of this house thing, listening to Bad Boy Bill and Julian Perez on the radio. Like, I slowly started gravitating more to house because at the time, house music it was a little bit of everything, right? At least in
Mhm.
Chicago. Like when you heard these
Yeah.
guys on the radio on B96, you heard Tim Schomer playing freestyle, and you heard, Bad Boy Bill playing house mixed with club music. And then it wasn't until later where you start to understand the different genres, and you really start to see, okay, this is house that I'm not familiar with, which was like Little Lewis, um, Trax Records. Like it was
Yep.
just, I was from the burbs, so I wasn't really up on what these guys were playing in the city. I had never been to Gramophone before. I had never been to the Hip House record store. So it was all new for me. But man, over the years, I just slowly found myself gravitating to house. And then shortly after, within like a 2 year span, I met Kevin Halstead, and we
Cool.
started making tracks on his computer. Like we were actually cutting time. Like there was like, for example, let's say an 8 bar loop was, or a 16 bar loop was
Right.
14.568 seconds. You would cut those segments and just play stuff, and that was our first experience arranging and building songs. And then before you knew it, we did some mixtapes together, and then we started making music. And that
Now,
was when the first time we got paid for a record. Uh, Andy Adams, DJ Attack,
mhm,
actually gave us an ASR 10 keyboard as
those are
payment for our
awesome.
first record. And
Nice.
so back then, I don't know, what was that, like maybe 1,800 $1,800 or
Yeah.
$2,000 for that
That was
keyboard.
the top of the line back in the day, man.
Yeah, so that was for us. We're like, man, we just got a keyboard advance, and then after that, it was, every week for, I don't know, for 2, 3, 4 years, I would drive out to, Carpentersville. I was living in the city, so it was like a good hour drive. We would just work on music, and then we
That's
just started
crazy.
building our catalog. We didn't know what it was going to be. We didn't know what DanceWorks was. We didn't know. All we knew is DJ Tragic was on the label. DJ Attack was on the label. I worked in record stores, so I kind of knew, different local artists,
Right.
like Angel Alanis. And this is even before DJ Bam Bam made a record. So, Rick Garcia, Mozzie, Abstract Beating System, like all the Chicago
Oh,
guys
Chicago
that
heads,
were
yeah.
making music at the time. We were just having fun figuring things out. Like we didn't know how big electronic music was going to be. All we knew was house music, and then what was Chicago,
Yeah.
soulful. It was, Dance Mania, Booty, and Ghetto Tracks. And then Strictly Rhythm, Armand Van Helden. In fact, our first record, we sampled the kick from Get on the Donkey. So that was it Get on the Donkey? It was definitely an Armand Van Helden kick that we sampled. And then we just started building around that. And then,
Wow.
the rest is history, pretty much.
Now, do you consider yourself more of an MC than a DJ, or a DJ more than an MC?
Well, I don't know. I mean, right now, I think I'd consider myself more of a DJ because I'm not really emceeing per se. I've released a ton of records with my vocals on there,
Right.
and I'm still writing stuff and releasing music, but I find myself DJing more. So I like to think I'm a DJ first, an MC second, and to be honest, I don't really even consider myself a producer because I feel like that would be disrespecting great producers. I feel like I know just enough to make rhythms, to make beats,
Right.
and just I know enough to take what's up here in terms of ideas and try to put it down in a way that I can understand it, or I feel this is how I want it to go.
Mhm.
And then, working with DJ Bam Bam over the years, and now I'm working with Brian Boncher. Those guys I feel those guys are the gifted ones, right? They're the ones that understand the mix downs. And so I'm glad I've been able to work with guys like that. But for the most part, I wouldn't consider myself a full blown producer. I mean, if you're
Mhm.
looking at like Chris Lake and Zed and, guys, in the house community, I just feel like I know enough to run Ableton, um, to sample some beats, make some rhythms, chop up some loops.
Well, you definitely got some great tracks, man. I mean, and like I caught your gig when you went live with Richard Vision and Bad Boy Bill, and there was the L.A. versus Chicago, and you were spinning your tracks, and you were going live over your vocals. I thought that was really cool, man. And it was like I had caught a couple of your tracks prior to this, but there was a lot of stuff that you were doing there that I was like, I haven't heard this one. I haven't heard this one. I was like, this is cool. I like this. And I was like, so it just, you definitely got the talent. What would you say that you attribute your talent to? Is it from watching other DJs, or is it something that just came naturally to you?
You know what? I think I attribute it to being the youngest of five and growing up listening to the music that my brothers and sisters listened to.
Right.
My brother was the one that introduced me to hip hop at the very early age. And then just growing up listening to disco, right? In the 70s, the Bee Gees, and then slowly seeing how just disco morphed into, you know, pop music, and then just being absorbed in the clubs. And so as far as what I attribute to, I think it's just my upbringing. I think it's I'm influenced by Chicago most definitely
Yeah.
from the mixtapes. The whole mixtape game in Chicago was crazy. I mean, there was thousands upon thousands upon thousands of DJs making mixtapes. So
Yeah.
just and working in a record store, so absorbing all this music from mixtapes to vinyl to even music I didn't play, but I sold it in record stores. It kind of influenced everything that I do because as a DJ, I don't I prefer to play house,
Hmm.
but I play everything. I know how to play everything. I can play everything. I can play disco. I can play underground, tech house. I can
Yeah.
play. techno, at
But
least the
that
techno
also
side.
comes across in your productions because it's like there's some DJs that we're mentioning names, but they get into this kind of like a stalemate where it's just kind of like almost every track kind of sounds the same, you know.
Right.
Um, but you give it it seems like you got a different varieties, and you can see that you've picked up from all the different genres that you're mentioning right now that you enjoyed listening to as you were growing up.
Yeah, I think that is definitely why I have what I call music ADD, where I mean, you know, just I can't listen to one thing. Like
Yeah,
who wants to listen to one thing? It's kind of like eating the same thing for breakfast. Now, that if looking back, maybe that's hindered me because I didn't focus on just one style. Like there's a lot of great Chicago DJs that have always been house DJs, right?
right.
I mean, like Mark Farina, Heather, Derek Carter. Like from what I understand, they don't really go outside of what they know, and that's why they're great at it. That's why
Hmm.
they're respected at it. That's why they're adored as Chicago house DJs because
Right.
that's what they've been doing. For me, just watching, when I was, coming, at 15, 16, going to clubs, going to parties, going to, raves even, I just enjoyed watching what all the DJs brought to the table, So you'd go to a rave and, I'd see, Kyoki. That same rave, I'd hear Just One. I'd see guys like Mozzie and Mark Almeria and guys, local guys. Like everyone had their own flavor, and for me, it was kind of like, man, I like that. I like that. I like that. I love that. It was. It was just for me. I think and then working in a record store, right, where I'm selling hip hop. I'm selling, high energy music. I'm selling house. I'm selling underground. I'm selling mixtapes of all types of genres from all different DJs from all over the Midwest. I think just naturally, I just was able to enjoy this part of that genre, that part of that
Right.
genre, and then as an artist, being able to write lyrics and rap or MC, whatever you want to call it. I was influenced from Kool D to I mean all the old hip hop guys, KRS-One, Jungle Brothers, I
Yeah.
mean all those guys. So from an MC point, I grew up listening to all those artists, and then just seeing these other guys in Chicago do it, like Fast Eddie, Cool Rock Steady, Tyree
Mhm.
Cooper. You know, I was dancing to the music before I even started DJing it. So for me, my culture comes as a party kid, a club kid.
Mhm.
Then I learned how to DJ. Then that's where I started gravitating to other genres. But I mean, Chicago is just there's so many different vibes and flavors, and I think
Yeah.
I'm grateful to be able to be in that nucleus of a city with all these different vibes going on at once. And then over the course of 5, 10, 15, 20, now 30 years, it's honestly, I think the biggest, yeah, family, what they listened to growing up as a kid, and then
That's
just
cool.
every aspect of Chicago, every artist, every nightclub,
Mhm.
every mixtape, working in record stores. I mean, it,
It's a
it
flurry
really
of
is.
everything. That's cool. You
Yeah,
mentioned
yeah.
a lot of DJ names. Who would you say is been the biggest influence on you and your career?
Bad Boy Bill, without a doubt. That was the first guy that I mean, everybody used to love getting their cassettes ready to hit
Yeah.
record when his mix was coming on. And then just befriending him. Like just all of us now we've been really good friends for 20 something years and
Nice.
going on the road with him and learning from him, all
Mhm.
the ins and outs of touring, what to look for, what to ask for,
How
road
did that
management.
relationship start? How did you guys meet?
Uh, if I remember correctly, it was at an underground, not an underground, it was at a hotel party, at a banquet in a hotel. I remember it was the Holiday Inn. It was right off Cumberland and 90. I think it was all no, I think it was a Ramada at the time. I'm not sure. It was either Ramada or Holiday Inn.
Mhm.
And he I don't remember how I met him, but I was able to get on stage while he was DJing and just rap. Like it was,
Cool.
yeah, it was just rap, and then it was being, when you're a club kid, you're at every party, right?
Yeah.
So whenever Bill was playing a party, that was the party you were going to. And then it was, Bill was playing two or three parties that night. So we would just follow him. We would go from one party was at the VFW at, he's playing at this time. And then we'd go to a Holiday Inn. He was playing there. And then we'd go to 13 Colonies, which is another banquet hall. And we'd go there. And then it was just like seeing the same people, right? You start to see the community. You start to recognize faces. You start to meet new people. And then there was just that recognition of, hey Bill, hey Alex. It was like, it wasn't even a first name basis. I don't think it was just kind of the head nod,
Like,
like,
what's up,
yo,
dude?
hey, I see you,
Right.
acknowledgement, and then the party goes on. And back then we would dance and try to meet girls, and that was it. Um, and then he threw a party at the Rosemont Expo Center, the Rosemont Convention Center, and I grew up in Rosemont, which
Mm.
is a small community. But at the time there was just a lot of hotels, small residential area, and I think he knew me enough that I lived in Rosemont, so he was throwing a party. We're going in, and he's like, "Hey, Alex, yeah, yeah." He goes, "You live in Rosemont, right?" He goes, "Listen, I need some signs made to let people know where to go if they have tickets or where to go buy tickets."
Mm.
And because he knew I lived in Rosemont, he assumed that I would know where to get cardboard or poster board with markers.
Right, right, right.
So my friend Rick at the time, my best friend, he used to drive a red Skylark, and Bill was like, "Let's go." So I remember Bill getting into the car, us driving to this. It was just like it was. There wasn't even a Walgreens or CVS. It was this pharmacy. I don't know
Hmm.
if you remember the term pharmacy, where you
Yeah,
go get your
right.
medicine. But they had school supplies. They had greeting cards, all that kind of stuff.
Oh
And I
yeah.
remember going there to get poster board and markers. And then we get back to the party, and he's like, "Can you, how's your penmanship?" And at the time, I knew how to tag a little bit, but
Okay,
my
cool.
penmanship was enough where I ended up writing all the poster boards, like tickets to the left with arrows, and I don't
Right,
even
right,
remember what
right.
I put on these poster boards. And I think from that point on, we just became friends. And then slowly it was, he'd come, I'd hold records for him when I worked at Superdance or when I worked at the Hip House. I was ordering records, so I would order music. He would, I'd save him his stack of records. He'd come pick it up. Then it was, "Hey man, can you bring me those records?" So then I was going to his house to drop off the records. And then I think it was Bang in the Box 2. I didn't live too far from him at the time. And he's like,
Mhm.
"Hey Alex, I was wondering if you'd be down to, you know, come, share some thoughts and, some what your creativity on this new mix I'm working on." And I would bring him records every week. And next thing you know, I'm sitting in a studio while he's working on Banging the Box. And I'm just
Wow.
like, this is a fucking trip. And then we just been friends ever since. We worked on
That's
a couple
cool.
records together. Um, and then, after Steve Smooth was his road manager and opening DJ,
Hmm.
he had asked me if I'd be down to road manage a few. I was like, yeah, sure. Well,
Cool.
I started road managing. Then, I was able to MC for him during his shows. And then every once in a while, there'd be an opening DJ slot, or the promoter would know, "Hey, that's Alex Peace. Let's have him open." So then every once in a
Cool.
while, I'd get my name on a flyer. And then before you know it, we're going to South Korea, we're going to Central America, we're going to
Nice.
I'm playing at Beta in Denver. I'm opening, what was the big theater in LA? Avalon. I was
Right,
opening
Avalon.
Avalon. And
Prior
next thing
prior to
you
that, it was
know,
called the Palace.
yeah. So
Yeah.
now I'm opening for Bill, and I'm seeing for him and road managing.
Yeah.
Um, and that was probably the biggest just learning experience that,
That is
it was
cool.
great to understand how he worked,
Right.
working with his management company, working with his booking agent, getting to learn basically trial by fire, right?
Right.
Hey, Alex, here's the PDF. Make sure you make sure the car service is ready, make sure
Yeah.
this is ready, and just learning how to do all that was just it was just a great learning
Because
experience.
I discovered Bad Boy Bill through Power Tools. Richard and I, Richard Vision, we grew up together, and we have a long history together. And when Richard launched Power Tools, I had just transitioned to the Spanish market here in Los Angeles. So I was on Spanish radio, and Richard stayed at Power 106. Um, and Richard, I left just as Richard had created the 70s mix on a 4-track. Okay. And that thing just blew me away because I had never worked on a 4-track before. And I was just like in amazement. He had this reel to reel and he did this thing. And I was like, wow. I go, this is just phenomenal. Move forward a little bit. Bad Boy Bill goes on the air and everybody's raving about, oh my God, Bad Boy Bill's going to be on there. Bad Boy Bill, Bad Boy Bill. And I had not heard him yet. And when I heard him that night, I kid you not, my mom, I was just like, how the hell did he do that? Because
Right.
Richard at that time was not much of a scratcher. He was more of a mixing and editing really clean. But Bill was just like, he was just doing some crazy stuff, man. And it was just his quick mixing was just like boom, 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 boom. So the first time that I saw him live was at the Dome, and he's doing it live.
Right.
His mixes are like boom, 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 boom. And I'm just like, I was blown away, man. The guy is just phenomenal. So, for you to get under his wing and start learning, it makes a lot of sense. Listening to your work and your tracks and stuff, and seeing how he has been a big influence on you, because your stuff is really cool. And for those of you watching that have not heard Alex's music, you definitely want to check him out. You definitely want to start searching his tracks and stuff because they're banging. That's all I have to say.
Oh, thank you, God. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think Bill's mixing style and the way he used to make his radio mixes and the way he used to do his mixtapes. I mean, from Hot Mix 1 to Hot Mix, I think 18 was the final Hot Mix, and then he created other names, and then he was really the first Chicago DJ, or really
Mhm.
US DJ, to legalize mixtapes, like, when he licensed the music and did Bang in the Box 1.
Mhm.
So I think for a lot of Chicago DJs growing up in the 90s, just his style was just so infectious at the time. And if you asked him where he got his DJ chops from, I'm sure his list of DJs that
Yeah.
he grew up following was maybe guys that I heard of but never seen live. Because again,
Right.
I was from the suburbs. I wasn't in the city. I didn't really know too much. All I knew is I wanted to go dance. That's all I knew. And it wasn't until I was 18, 19 years old where I really started to understand who the DJs were,
Right.
what the better
Right.
labels were, what the better record store, or at least the record stores of preference that I enjoyed going to were. And then everything just happened really fast, like really fast, man.
Oh
From,
man.
my
So it was like
first gig.
it was like 2007 when you landed your gig in radio, no?
Well, I did. No, it was 2009 is
Okay.
when I hosted the mix show, and that was already after Bill and Julian and the
Uh-huh.
and mix masters were already done. And I got a chance to host a mix show. I did that, and before that, I was doing jingles for the radio station. So they
Mhm.
would have a thing called the Summer Bash.
That's cool.
Well, 2 or 3 years, I wrote a rap mentioning all the artists, using a backbeat from one of the artists, an
That's cool.
instrumental. And then one year they let me perform it. I think it was 94, 95, and I'm
That's
in front
cool,
of
man.
30,000 people. And they're like, hey man, you want to perform you want to open the B Bash with your rap that we've been playing on the radio for the last 3, 4 weeks. I'm like, yeah. And I remember out there doing it, and I had friends and family there, and
That's cool. It's a
it
rush,
was,
isn't it?
yeah, and it was the first time I had personally been in front of a crowd that big,
Hmm.
you know, and it was just, don't mess up the words. Don't mess up the words. Yeah.
So, all the venues that you've played at around the world, which is the one stands out the most? Which is the place, the event that you did, which is the most memorable for you? Would you say up until now?
The most memorable party I did was with Kevin Halstead. We played in Cleveland, Ohio. Trying to remember the name of the club. It was in an industrial part of Cleveland. The promoter brought us out, and we were on this stage, and him and I were doing a two by four. And I just remember just playing and just people losing their shit, and the promoter coming down and saying, "You guys want to play an extra, half hour?" And we're like, "Fuck yeah!"
Nice.
And then I mean, that was one of them, really. But that was the one with Kevin Halstead that I'll remember. Another, and then as far as venues go, I mean, I played with Bill in some of the best venues in the U.S. So, from playing Beta to playing, Avalon. But as far as my favorite venue, it has to be Spy Bar, Chicago. I
Mm.
mean, that is like, it's just low ceilings. It's, before they remodeled, it just used to be that
There's something
underground.
about those low ceilings, right?
It's all party down there. I mean, your
Yeah,
DJ is right on top of the crowd, like you're right there.
yeah,
Uh, when they got the new system in years ago, it was. I mean, it. I don't know. There's just something about that venue. I mean, there was other venues like Red Dog was a great venue. China Club, that was more of a bigger mega club. Kaboom was another big mega club, but I think Spy Bar just there's just something about that basement. I mean, if you ask another DJ, if you ask 100 DJs who've played there, or any DJ who says that's their favorite venue, they're all going to have an emotion or a
yeah,
feeling that room brings out in them. So for
yeah.
me, I can't pinpoint it, but just even going there as a fan, listening to different DJs come through, it feels great in that room,
Yeah,
and I'm
it's
sure
something.
people
I guess it's because it's more, those smaller venues are usually more intimate. Because like I'll give you an example. I was spinning at the Shark Club here in downtown Los Angeles. I mean that place holds like, I think it's like 1,500 people. Freaking huge, huge ass high ceilings and everything. DJ booth is up on the second floor, and you're overlooking this huge dance floor, and it was awesome. Don't get me wrong. But I went from there to a club in Glendale called Pappy's Nightclub, and this is when I transitioned to the Spanish market. So I was playing house at the Shark Club, and then I go to Pappy's, which was this 350 capacity venue, but it had these brick walls, it had neon, and DJ booth was just like right there on the dance floor, and it was just something about that place. It's like it sounds cliche, but it was magical, man. It was magical.
yeah,
Those small venues just do something to you that make it more intimate, make it more personable with the people that you're spinning for.
right, yeah, that I know exactly what you're talking about. It's definitely um, I don't know. There's just every DJ has that venue, right?
Yeah,
That they just love
yeah,
playing at. I was fortunate enough to play at the Dome, so I understand what it was like
yeah.
to be all the way up there, looking out that window,
That window.
right? Window, and you're just seeing this enormous dance floor.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, there was nothing like that in Chicago. So the first
yeah.
time I walked into the Dome, I was blown away. I mean, it was. I'm trying to remember the first time I went. I think the first time I was ever at the Dome was the Power Tools 4 year anniversary.
Mm,
I remember they did shirts. I remember Bill and Richard
yeah,
did a two by four. We did a huge radio interview at Power Tools, and
that's cool.
everybody was there from CZR to Tony B and Richard and Bill, and we were all there just hanging out. And I was actually performing that night with
Nice.
Funk on stage, and even at that time, I was never in the booth. And then one time I was going to LA, and I was able. Richard was like, "Hey man, you want to play?" I was like, "Are you kidding me? I would love to play." And I don't even. I mean, it might have been like a 40-minute set, but it was. And I
Sweet.
remember playing Rhythm Masters, "Keep Jumping," the
Oh yeah.
the the Rhythm Masters remix. And I remember Richard going, "Dude, what you were doing with that record, because remember, if you remember it, it had that da, 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 but it's almost sounded like edits, but that was actually in the record.
And the record itself, yeah.
I remember Richard asking me, he's like, dude, what was that? What were you doing? Dude, those tricks. I go, I didn't do those tricks. That was already in the record. And I remember giving, it was on Manifesto, if I remember correctly.
I
It
think
was
so,
on an
yeah.
import label called Manifesto.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I remember I'm like, here you go. I just gave him the record. Like, thanks for letting me play. Here's the record. And, him and I have been friends, ever since as well. And
That's cool.
yeah, it's been a weird, not weird. It's been a blessing. Like this journey is really been amazing. And sadly, I've been immature about things, and sadly, I just realized that I should be grateful for the journey. Otherwise, you forget. Like I think if anybody's listening, whatever you're going through in life, whatever your career is, appreciate the journey.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have appreciated it more. Like I do appreciate it, but I wish I would have enjoyed the moment a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything just moves so fast, and
In
I
the
wish I
blink of an
slowed.
eye, man. In the
Yeah,
blink
I,
of
I
an eye.
really wish I would have. I mean, nobody can stop time, right? But I wish
Exactly.
I would have been conscious enough to try to just step back and look around and just be like, wow, yeah. I wish I would have enjoyed the journey a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. No, I feel you on that one, man. Because it's like you said. I mean, time flies, man. You're doing it, and then you're in the moment, and then next thing you know, it's like, what the hell happened, man? Where'd it go?
Yeah, yeah.
So let's come up to the present. We're almost done here. Um, COVID-19 hits. How has that sparked your creativity in this time of pandemic and having to stay indoors?
Well, I feel blessed that it didn't hinder my productivity.
Good.
Um, if anybody doesn't know, I own and operate a new label called True Musica
True
with my
musica.
partner Brian Boncher. So him and I were able to stay busy during the pandemic.
That's
I
cool.
stayed home, obviously, and the only time I left was to go to his house so we could work on music or we could do our TrueCast, our live stream.
Hmm.
Um, and even though the gigs weren't there as much, we still found time to be creative. We still were like, you know what? This is the one thing we could do that makes us happy. Let's make sure we don't stop doing that. Because
Yeah.
especially during the pandemic, during a quarantine, you get a lot of free time. You start to reflect. You start
Yeah.
to you think, is this the path? Is this what I want to keep doing? Well, for me, it was eye opening because I realized that I didn't have to devote so much time and energy to the music and still be happy with what I was doing. So as long as I
Yeah.
kept making music, as long as I kept playing music, as long as I kept sharing music, that was really all I wanted. So, you got to get a part-time job. I started doing more voiceovers.
Very cool.
Everyone had their pivot, right? Everyone
Right.
started to
Right.
pivot and do other things. I did that, but I didn't lose sight of what was making me happy. And that was to continue making music, continue sharing music, whether it be releasing music from other up and coming artists, and then, doing our live streams and just releasing music. And to
Yeah.
me, God willing, I'll do it for another 10, 15, 20 years, right? I
Amen.
just know I've learned that that doesn't have to be the main focus. I
Mm.
just want to do it enough to stay happy.
There you
And
go.
that's
There you go.
it. Keep it simple.
So it's a new year, 2021. What do you have in store for us that we can look forward to say, all right, I got to keep an eye out for this?
I think Brian and I I want to say we're dialing our sound in, but
Mhm.
that'd be bullshit because him and I are the same in the sense that we like making different types of music. We like making Jack and House. We like sampling disco records. We like making chuggy, techie, tribal, rhythmic records. Um, I think just watching the label grow, watching the label. I think 2021, you're going to hear better music from the record label. I don't want to say better music from me because I feel like the music Brian and I are making is always evolving. So
Now you have other artists on the label too. I was checking out your website and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, Rub Sound System, which is Reese Urban and Brian Boncher, that's their moniker.
mhm.
Uh, Brian Boncher, of course, myself, and then we accept demos from anyone and everyone. We're
Sweet.
not a label that's like, well, if you don't have 10,000 followers, we're not gonna fuck. Like,
That's good, man. Because I just started
yeah,
producing, so I'm gonna send you some tracks soon.
yeah, please do, please do. I mean, we're just trying to put out good music that reflects the label, and
Awesome.
that's really it. I don't care where it comes from. If as long as we're able to release it, you own the rights to it, or whatever. As long as it jacks, you know,
It's
we'd
on.
love to put it out.
Sweet, man. Well, listen, Alex, I really appreciate you taking the time once again to chat with me on my little podcast called DJ to DJ. And I know we were going back and forth for a little while, man, but your schedule is obviously tight because you were traveling, you were producing, you're doing all kinds of stuff, man, and that's good, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of 2020 was me trying to figure out how much time I could devote to the music part of it.
Mm,
And again, there was a time when I did start to resent the industry or the music or even my craft because I felt I wasn't growing. But I realized that that was the totally wrong way to look at it. For me, I just want to make music. So being able to say, okay, I'm only going to have music be part of, 20% of my life. I'm not going to let it consume me the way it has over the years. It forced me to be more selective and really say, okay, I want to do this interview. When you first hit me up, I wanted to do it. Then it was the holidays.
yeah.
Then I'm traveling, and then it was just getting together. We were going to do it a couple nights ago, and I was like, you know what? I feel like let me wait. In fact, I'm in a hotel room right now in McAllen. I'm fortunate to be DJing tonight, but at least I knew that here I could get privacy. We could do the
Right.
interview. There won't be dogs barking and kids yelling and my sister telling me, "Come down, eat dinner." This is a better way to keep it. Where I could just be me. I could just focus on you and do the interview without any distractions. So I appreciate your patience with me, but I'm
My
glad we got
pleasure,
to do
brother.
it. What you're doing is awesome. So I hope
Thanks.
you continue doing what you're doing and interviewing more DJs, and hopefully, maybe in a year, 6 months, we'll do this again, and we'll see if
There
we'll
we
see
go.
what's changed what's happened.
There we go. We'll get an update. Sounds good.
All right.
Well, listen, brother,
Awesome.
once again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And of course, you that's watching, if you like this episode, make sure you hit that like button. As always, subscribe, click the bell so that you get notified when I have another amazing DJ talent right here on DJ to DJ. Alex, brother, please stay safe. God bless. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you, brother. God bless.